You can see from our objectives that what we're going to try to answer today is what is dew point, how does it cause dew to form, and then to be able to describe how and why clouds form. So to that end, we're going to start with just a little mini lab to answer the question, why does the grass get wet at night? So what you're going to do is you're going to take one of these thin metal buckets and you're going to fill it about halfway with just water from one of the sinks. It won't come out quite room temp, but essentially. And then you're going to take a thermometer and you're going to measure the temperature in the bucket, but I don't want you to let the thermometer touch the bottom of the bucket because we don't want it to touch the metal and have the metal influence things. Then you're going to take a glass stir, you'll take the thermometer out and you'll take a glass stir stick, and then you're going to add some crushed up ice to your bucket a little bit at a time and stir it gently with that stir stick, and you'll continue to add ice until you start to see condensation form on the outside of your bucket. Okay? At that point, as soon as you start to see that form, you'll stop what you're doing and you'll take your thermometer back out and you'll measure it. The reason I want you to stir with the stir stick and not the thermometers is if the thermometers break, then all that liquid that's inside comes out and we don't want to mess with that. So we're just going to use the stir sticks instead. Okay? And then when that's all done, we'll come back together and we'll kind of review what happened. Sound good? So, how did the temperature before you had condensation happen compare to the temperature after condensation happened? Much colder. Okay, so you had to have a decrease in temperature. Okay, where do you think that the water that was on the side of your bucket came from?
It pulled moisture out of the air.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It did. It pulled the moisture out of the air. And the reason that happens, we discussed a little bit yesterday, that warmer air can hold more moisture than cooler air. So as air cools down, it has to release some moisture. It can't hold as much. And so when that air comes in contact with the cool side of the bucket, it loses energy, it gets colder, and some of that moisture has to come out. And so then it condenses on the side of that bucket, which you can see based on that, that is the reason why you have dew on grass and on objects. Because as the temperature cools during the night, then the air cools and some moisture has to come out of it, but water can't condense onto nothing. So it has to have a surface to condense on, and as a result, it's going to condense on objects. On the grass, on the sidewalk, on the cars, and then you get dew. This concept of dew point is the temperature at which moisture has to leave that air. So when you reach that temperature, then moisture is going to come out of the air. And the dew point is going to be different depending on the day, okay? Which is why some mornings you'll notice there's more dew than others. This concept of dew point also affects our understanding of cloud formation. So the first thing that happens when clouds are formed is we have warm, moist air rising. So if you wanted to draw that, you could just do an up arrow with warm air, right? That warm air is going to go up. It's because it's less dense. So we have this air near the surface of the earth that gets really hot, it's full of moisture, and it begins to rise. But as it rises, then, oops, I need to do that. I don't know why it won't let me type down there, but as it rises, the air will cool down. Because the air is heated by the surface of the ground, the further it gets from the ground, the cooler it is. So as it gets into our upper atmosphere, then that air starts to cool. Okay. So if you wanted to draw this, you could just draw air getting cold. You could draw a little thermometer cooling down, okay? And then as we discussed, as air cools down, it loses moisture. So you can draw a little arrow for moisture. But you can't really read that, but moisture is leaving the air, okay? It's getting out of there. But as we discussed with the dew, water can't just hang in the air on nothing. You're gonna say, well, isn't that what clouds are? Is water hanging in the air? Yes, but not hanging on nothing. So what it needs is tiny microscopic particles, which we call condensation nuclei, allow water to condense into clouds. So you're going to have these tiny little particles that are essentially invisible to your eye, and then water droplets begin to condense on them and they become visible and they turn into the puffy little clouds that we see in the clouds during the day, or in the sky during the day. So those tiny little microscopic particles are what allow clouds to form. It's dust and dirt and debris that is up in the atmosphere normally, and it's what allows them to form. Pretty cool stuff. We're actually gonna take a minute here and we're gonna make a cloud in a jar, so you can kind of watch that process happen. Your homework for today is page 32, questions 1 through 4. You can use the text to help you. If you have questions, come and ask.